Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Fearless Freedom Family, we are back with another episode. And of course, we have another amazing guest. Today, we have Dr. Denicia HIlton, and she's going to tell you all about the unique practice that she has and what she is up to. Dr. HIlton?
Hey, feel free to call me Denicia.
Yeah, so the family wants to know all about what you're up to, who you are, all that good stuff.
Oh my gosh, there's so much going on right now. So we'll focus on I guess like the big theme right now is all about shedding light on what I call to be the silent epidemic of period bypassing. And that just getting that message out that it's happening, and because it's happening and nobody's seeing it, that we have a lot of girls and teens and women that are going around where they are just not aware of themselves. And so they're kind of going around just going with emotions. A lot of things are being done to them, and they are just lacking confidence in themselves and setting healthy boundaries. It's so many things. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a period bypassing and the way that you can shed light on it, but then what do you do with it? And really, to help with all of what I said, I found it's learning about the menstrual cycle holistically. And when we do that, and when we learn that, then that's where we increase in our awareness, we increase in our own consciousness, we increase in our confidence and the expression of who we truly are. And so I came to that through my practice of acupuncture Oriental Medicine is where I started. That's my foundation, my base, specializing in reproductive medicine. So while these women are coming to me with issues with their menstrual cycles and with fertility, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we'll work on that. And then, but really, I saw all of those other qualities of her where she was shaky on it. She was murky on it. She wasn't really wanting to. She didn't really know that, oh, I'm just going with emotions. And like, but now moving into a space of, whoa, my menstrual cycle has been telling me information about myself on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. So like now I'm on this whole mission of shedding the light, educating and encouraging them to like embrace and embody, all of what holistic menstrual health is. So that's where I'm at and right now.
Okay, so now you have to explain a few things because you mentioned some terms there that I'm sure the audience is curious about. So I would definitely talk about the kind of medicine that you practice because you kind of mentioned that briefly. So I'm sure people have questions about that. And then could you also elaborate on what do you mean by period bypassing?
Yes. So, okay. Great question about the Eastern medicine. So it's I practice acupuncture Oriental Medicine. I'm going to say that the easiest way to think about it is that it's a medicine where we look at the whole person. So we look at how it is. We may ask you questions about certain things, and it's really because those symptoms and those signs that we're seeing. So whether that's symptoms that you're complaining about, you're telling us about, or the signs, which are the ones that you're simply observing. So whether it's through the face or the ear, the tongue, the pulse, it's what we're doing is we're actually getting information about your organ system, and then also how it is that those messages are giving us a representation of what is going on right now with you on a physical level, mental level, emotional level, spiritual level. So it's really taking that approach and perspective of someone. And then, because from that perspective, we're seeing, well, everything that you're telling us about and everything that we're seeing are really that. They're just messages. So let's see what it is that you're really trying to communicate right now as far as what's out of harmony. And then how is it that we can help put those back into harmony? And so by doing so, then that's when like the symptoms and the signs change. That's when they start to fall away, because your wholeness is coming together and you're expressing in a way that's like, okay, this is healthy. Like, this is my healthier state. So that is like the foundational perspectives and viewpoints, concepts, and whatnot. Now, how you get to that is where it really varies, because we might use herbs with I personally use custom formulas, meaning that, okay, I see you and I come up with I assess, diagnose, and put together a formula, an herbal formula that's meant for you. But we use food therapies, lifestyle consultations. And lifestyle, I mean, that is a huge term, right? So it'll be like, whether it's something that I'm seeing that you would benefit from a certain type of meditation. It might be a visualization. It might be a journaling, right? It might be a physical movement practice that I might recommend for you to engage in. It might be acupuncture if they're seeing me personally, but if they're a virtual patient or client, then we might use magnet therapy instead. It might be using labs is how I might integrate between Western and Eastern medicine. So that journey for you of what it is, the tools that you're going to use is going to be based on you. And so that's another unique factor to practicing Eastern medicine, is that it's definitely more about who are you and how are you representing and telling us like what it is that you need. So it's not like everybody might need the same thing to get to, who they personally want to be, right? So the tools will vary. Now, when it comes to period bypassing is a concept where there is neglect and underappreciation of the value of holistic menstrual health. And that education about holistic menstrual health, you're going to withhold, right? You're either withholding or you're neglecting it. And there's misinformation or miseducation, right? And that's done out of someone's own comfort, convenience, or control. Those are the three things that I've narrowed it down to as to why it is that somebody would not want to fully inform about the menstrual cycle on a holistic level.
So I guess you have to maybe give like a concrete example so that we can actually like understand, because I'm listening and I think I understand, but I don't know if I really do. Do you mind giving like a concrete example so that we can understand that? Yeah.
Yes, I totally can. And what's funny is like I'll hear people say that, and I'm curious as to what is your example, because oftentimes what you're thinking of is exactly it. So before I give one, can I hear what you think?
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. If you have a period that's super irregular, does that mean that you're off balance in some way? I don't know. That's what I would think about. But then you have people who are actually like their periods are regulated by hormonal use, right? So they're on pills, so they don't really know like what their cycle is.
Mm-hmm. So you got it. That's perfect examples. So that's what I mean when I say like, okay, period bypassing is everywhere. It comes in different forms and in different shapes. And so let's take your example, especially of they don't know what their cycle is because they are on the pill. That's exactly it. Like, it's a way that you're bypassing the menstrual cycle itself. And so I ask that question of, okay, well, why are you on the pill? The studies that have been out for a while, and they keep redoing it and asking, the primary reason why women are taking the pill is actually not for birth control. It's more because they're having like cramps or heavy bleeding or acne. And so that means then that their cycle definitely is calling for their attention, and there are some disharmonies that's going on. But instead of addressing what is it that's actually causing that to happen, we want to period bypass it by just, here's a pill, and then we'll just stop all of your own production. We'll synthetically control it. And then without full disclosure of the potential effects of the hormonal contraceptives. So that's another form of period bypassing. Because if you were to fully disclose it, then at least if she decided to do it, then it'd be coming from a more informed place. But instead, it's more of a, oh, okay, so you're having hormonal acne. Well, here's this birth control. Do you want this in a pill form? Do you want it in an implant? Do you want it in a patch? Do you want it in a shot? Like, that's how it's presented. And so there's not that discussion. So you're further period bypassing her, right? And then now let's go ahead and say another example would be, okay, I'm having fertility issues, right? Then she's told her cycle is normal. Well, hormonally, everything looks normal. Your cycle itself is normal, right? But then say, like, and I say this because I've had people come in and that's the story. Like, that's what they were told, yet they still are having issues, and it'd be years. And then I say, let me introduce you to a way of looking at your cycle. Let's go ahead and log this information for me. And even then, I can point out where there actually are disharmonies in her cycle and where there are discrepancies in hormonal communication. So then I'm able to say, yeah, right here, there's a slow rise coming up in your temps. Or rather, you're not having any fertile mucus, or rather you think that's fertile mucus, but it's actually vaginal discharge. So then that could be impeding. Or your cycle is, you're having a lot of peen and there is the bloating, there's a lot of PMS going on, right? That's not supposed to be happening. And then, so then what happens is when I point things out like that, she's like, why hasn't anybody told me this? Why did they tell me that my period was normal the entire time? And so the period bypassing occurred in that fertility consultation and telling her that it was normal, because there's a discrepancy between what's a normal cycle and what's a healthy cycle. And so when there's a normal cycle, that just means that people see it so often that they consider it normal. That's really what it's, even in statistics, that's what it is. It's just how much do we see this that we can call this normal. But it does not mean that it's a representation of health. And so it's having that discussion. The period bypassing can actually occur to yourself. So it can be like, I know that I'm having this pain, and I know that I'm not eating well, and I know I'm not exercising, and I know I'm not verbalizing and healthily expressing my emotions. But instead of me just me dealing with that or seeking resources to help me to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and shut it off. Right. So, and that's for my comfort, because it's uncomfortable for me to actually understand my emotions and understand really what's going on. It's uncomfortable for me to explore the impact of past traumas on me. So whether or not you want to consciously engage in understanding your cycle, it's going to keep speaking to you. And it's going to keep speaking to you in the way that it's coming out during the cycle, whether it's going to be indigestion, bloating, cramping, breast tenderness, urination change, blood color, like blood consistency, is going to come out. And so it's like, which way do you want to choose? Would you want to choose that way? Or do you want to actually choose the way that's like, let me actively take a role. Let me be more active in how it is that I am expressing myself, right? So those were just a few examples, but you had it spot on when you when I asked you, like, yeah, what did you think? Like,
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's fascinating, because I mean, okay, so now like there's all of these, there's a new movement, I don't know if you saw that video that went viral on the internet with the dad and his daughter, and the daughter wanted to have a period party, and the dad got very involved in the period party. So I don't know if you've seen that, but that is like, because we just don't celebrate that. We don't like, because it's more of a nuisance, right? It's like, oh, here's a period, or it's like a welcome gift, like, oh yay, here's my period.
Yeah.
Because the alternative, it means that I'm not pregnant. But we don't celebrate it. It's not like in certain cultures where once that occurs, it's now your entrance into womanhood, and everybody like celebrates it or whatnot. So it's just not something that we're into.
Yeah.
We're into ways of making it less inconvenient.
Right. But see, even with that, somebody had to plug that into your head that it was inconvenient in the first place. That's marketing.
Oh, absolutely. But then also, I mean, we're probably not gonna speak to this because it's probably not like in the same realm of what you're talking about. But it's kind of nice to see some additional options being presented now, because before, I mean, what was it? It was a pad or a tampon, right? These are the only things. And so now people are more willing to use like a cup, or are you willing to use a high absorbency underwear? Like they have these new high absorbency fabrics that are, that basically you can utilize during that time. And so now there are more options that are, I guess, more friendly to the environment, number one, and number two, friendly to the body, right? Because I mean, tampons are awesome. I swear by them because I've used them all my life. But that being said, I do understand that there is a risk towards using these things, because there is a possibility of something called toxic shock syndrome. And so it's not it's not like a common thing, but it's not, it's not a zero risk. There is a risk. And
but see that right there,
if you happen to be in that category, if you happen to unfortunately fall into that category of that 1 in 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever the numbers are, I don't know exactly, then man, that's real to you. That is reality. That is like a harsh reality of you just trying to deal with this part of your existence. So
this is, I will say though, like, actually that is a part of the period bypassing, and it's period bypassing seen in the menstrual product industry. So yes, there are the other options now. I mean, cups actually were first. They were out there way before. It's just that you had these other companies come in who were like, we got this better, like, kind of thing. And so then it became more pads and tampons, but there is a shift of more women choosing to use cups. But here's the thing, is that the period bypassing in the menstrual product industry happens with how they are made. So even then with tampon use and toxic shock syndrome, it's like toxic shock syndrome to me is the worst. Like, but it's bypassing that you actually are still interacting with the toxins and the chemicals and the synthetics that are used in conventional tampons. So it's kind of like toxic shock is going to be a buildup, but you still have to educate and acknowledge that there is bleaching that's occurred. These may have even been chlorinated. There were artificial fragrances that were added. And so all of that is not really discussed as far as, here's this menstrual product, and we're going to let you know that these toxins are still going to cross into your bloodstream. Okay. And then it's just a matter of who it is that might use it and their sensitivity levels. And so I would encourage, like, I encourage the use of pads myself. I prefer pads too. And it's more about the allowing the blood to flow out. Like, that's just more of it for me, is that allowing the blood to flow out, and I'm going to use a cleaner option even in my pad. So even using pads that's using cotton that's not been chlorinated, it doesn't have all these other chemicals in it to absorb or to keep like in the center, as if 100% cotton won't do it. It does do it. And so because clearly there are successful companies that are selling them and they are working. So it's all in like, it is all in how it is that you see it. And then understanding that a company's job is to highlight something that may or may not be real because they want to present a solution, right? So that quote unquote need may have been created. And so like that's where I was coming from too. And I was like, yeah, like marketing for a product made it seem like it was inconvenient. And so because they needed to sell something. So it's like, all right, you got to understand, like you're going in there with that, like knowing that. And so the period bypassing in the menstrual product industry surely is occurring. And so how do you educate about that? Like you can educate about how it is that those are hormone disruptors. The chemicals that are used, they are hormone disruptors. There is also, sometimes when I ask about like tampon use and whatnot too, I'm like, so why is it you use it? And so I hear a variety of reasons. The ones that really get me though, and that is when it triggers that, ooh, she really doesn't understand or hasn't really fully embodied and embraced that this is a natural being of her, because it's like, it's this ick factor, not even wanting to see the blood or not like, so I don't want to see it at all. I'm just going to kind of plug it up and then that's it, like, and just move on with my life. And it's different when I rarely hear the ones that are like, oh, I'm okay with that part. I just used the tampon because it was a way for you not to see it. It was a way that it was created and presented, and like, we're gonna pretend like this isn't happening right now. So how about we just have something that you can insert and you don't need to see it, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's all of that. Like that is all a part of the period bypassing. And so even then when, say, I'm talking with parents and say their child hasn't started their cycle yet, but then there's that conversation of, okay, well, what products, right? And so that's a great opportunity to present cleaner product options. And so whether it is pads, like not conventional, but more pads, like disposable pads, or if it's going to be reusable pads. Is it going to be the cup? Is it going to be tampons? Is it going to be like free bleeding? Like what are the options that are there? And then educating about, okay, well, and they made it a lot easier now. So I can go into Target and if I need to, instead of waiting for an order or something like that, I can go in there and I can actually get a really clean option where they haven't chlorinated it and they haven't bleached it, right? And so then that whole argument, it's like, oh, well, it's not that it's more expensive. Actually,
it's actually not that bad.
Exactly. Not only are they more on par in price, say with somebody like Always or Stay Free, but get this, because you had exposed yourself to the toxins that come in those conventional products, your body, right? They're hormonal disruptors. So then a way that you're showing hormonal disruption might be in heavy bleeding and in cramping, right? So then now you're using more of those products. A lot of women report once they switch over to cleaner menstrual products, their flow changes. The meaning the amount that they are actually bleeding and even pain changes. It decreased. So technically, you might end up actually spending less on products by switching to a cleaner product.
Interesting.
Just because you're not exposing yourself to those toxins that would actually be disrupting the hormones anyway, and then you're having the irregular cycle.
That is interesting. See, I'm on the other end, like this is about to stop for me shortly. So
I get it.
But it's good. It's good to know. Good to know because I have girls. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so fascinating. Oh my God. I don't even know. So I would love for you to
never thought about the cycle in that way.
No, I have not like thought about it in depth. I'm like, all right, let's see. We got to do this, boom, and we're done. All right, next.
But see, that's the thing is I was like, no, there's so much that's happening during the cycle. Like there's so much that's happening. It's like, it's beyond the bleeding part. You know, it's like, no, the way that you think changes. The way that you feel changes. And so imagine like being taught about all of those shifts that are naturally happening during your cycle. Like you would free yourself from all of these social constructs and mandates of hyper performance, hyper productivity, and then you're all frustrated because you can't quote unquote keep up. And so what I'm asking you to do is to see, how are you cycling yourself? When you learn how you're cycling yourself, then you will better be able to plan your life. And then you're doing it with grace. And you're like, shit, this is why I say my cycle is my superpower. Because I know where I'm at. Like if I know I'm at this point in my cycle, my creativity is going to be on spot. So let me go ahead and record. Let me go ahead and set up all my recordings for my podcast, for others' podcasts, because I know I'm going to be there and I'm going to be like in it, right? I'm going to shine more brilliantly at that point. Then not schedule as many during another part of my cycle, because I know I'm going to be wanting to be turned more inward. So maybe that's when I'm going to start writing like my posts, right? Or designing more things for my audience or for my mentorship people, or, you know, so like, that's when I'll do it. So, but it took learning about this cycle and the holistic approach and throughout the whole cycle, not just the active bleed. The active bleed is simply telling you what's going on from the month prior.
Wow. You see me, I'm like, you guys can't see me, but Denise can see me. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like shaking I'm like, nodding my head. Wow. Oh my God. That is something else. I know my audience is like, what? Mind blown. OMG. So that's very informative. So I really appreciate you sharing all that, because you are correct. It's not something that we think about. It's not really to the fore of our minds, just because it is, it's just basically like another thing, right? Like brushing your teeth. Like you got to do the thing, and that's that. So it's good to know that there is more to it than that. So in coming to this and learning about this, in pursuing Eastern medicine, like, was there any fear that was involved in that, or did you have to overcome any fears?
Yeah. So if I'm telling you that the symptoms and the signs that you see that come from the cycle, like, so it's the things that are calling your attention, right? That may be uncomfortable. So it may be the cramping, and maybe the bloating or the breast tenderness. It may be like, things like that. It's them telling you that those are messages, right? Mm-hmm. Of your core being, like the essence of who you are, is using that as its like telephone, right? Mm-hmm. And saying like, I got these messages for you that I'm trying to peek out and I want to show who I am, but then I am wanting to hide that. And so I'm like, making all these choices and decisions that are not necessarily congruent with who my inner being is actually wanting to express, right? So I'm creating all this internal stagnation because I'm like, nope, that person may not like this, or this person may not like that. What are they going to think? And so that is fear. Mm-hmm. That's like fear of expressing myself, right? And that's fear of expressing myself personally, but then also in business, right? So it's like there are a bunch of times where fear pops up. Like if I talk about the spiritual side, geez, like, will somebody not like that and then they don't want to work with me? Or like, oh, if I don't share, I'm fearful of what people might think if I do this part, right? Or if I share this aspect. I'm a little bit fearful of saying to somebody that I'm working with that I'm seeing this, right? All of that it's there. I acknowledge that it's there, but I moved to a point where I don't want to have that uncomfortable cycle stuff going on, right? So that means then that I'm not serving myself, and I'm not serving those that I'm working with and would like to work with from my higher being and from my higher place. That means then that I'm allowing that fear to be like a disservice to everybody. But then, and so why would I want to keep living from there? And instead of choosing to see what I might miss out on or what I might not get, I'm choosing to see what I do get, right? And who I do get to meet. And like, you know, people like you don't have to have me come on there. When I ask people that might have, you know, might post or something like that, I am very open from the beginning. Like I'm coming to talk about menstrual health, right? I would like to talk about period bypassing. Is that something that would jive with your audience? And I'm open about that. Every single time I do that, there is a little bit of like a little bit that says, oh, they might say no. But I would never know if they did say no if I had never even put myself out there. So even then, it's like I'm having to put myself out there. Then at the same time, I'm honoring that and respecting and just so grateful. People like you are like, yes, let's talk about it. That, you know, because that's how it is that I can show. That's how I can show up. So, and that's how it is that I know that I can help and make those shifts, change the thought process. Because in these types of conversations, it's like, I know you already said it. Like, I'm towards the end, but I have daughters. And so now your own perspective has just shifted and could change the way that she has a relationship with herself. And because that menstrual cycle is a part of who she is. And the more and more that we don't teach about it, the more and more that we want to not like, we want to skirt around it or we want to misinform. What you're actually saying is, I'm not going to teach you about yourself. I'm not going to allow you, and I'm not going to open up the gates for the true expression of who you are to be able to come through. That's what we're saying. And then we're saying, yep, feel ashamed and guilty and fearful about this. So I'm going to just go ahead and tell you that, because I don't want you to see it. I don't want you to even take part of it. But that's such a part of who we are and how we grow. And we grow nations literally. Like, that's powerful. And so those who want to control it, hence part of the definition of period bypassing, they want you to be misinformed. They don't want you to learn more about that so you can actually embrace and embody. Because from that perspective, you grow. You grow in that awareness of yourself. You are now setting healthy boundaries, and those boundaries run right like in different categories. But boundaries could be socially with your parents. Then that might scare them because, oh, I don't have control over her anymore, right? But you know, it's kind of like, it can be fearful to people, to friends, like as you evolve and you grow into being who it is that you came here to be and the way that you came here to like serve, right? So even healthy boundaries with food, by changing our buying habits and saying, I actually want to have more non-GMO foods in my life, more organic foods, more grass-fed animal products, whatever. That's power. And that's a form of power. And when you make that choice, it's because you realize like, oh, if I have otherwise, I'm going to experience something with my cycle differently. Or we already talked about menstrual products. That's a healthy boundary with the menstrual products company. You can set healthy boundaries with your cosmetic industry by choosing not to buy the ones that are chock full of hormone disruptors. And our country allows more of those chemicals in our cosmetics line and industry than in Europe. Europe has very strict. And the fact that some companies know this is the reason why they want to go ahead and put it out here, because we're their guinea pigs. But then if you know more about your cycle and what interferes with you and your whole body, and then you start to protect and you start to really say, I'm going to self-love and I'm going to be self-aware. So I'm going to choose to put this in my life and not that. That's power, right?
Indeed.
So, and it's like, I'm not going to allow the fear that they want to put on me. That is how it is that they can control me. And that's how it is that I can take a more passive role in my life. So instead, by learning about the cycle from a holistic perspective, I'm putting myself in the place of taking an active role and things being done for me instead of things being done to me.
Love it. That's great. That's a perfect segue into our fill in the blanks.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So here's the first one. So this is a tradition in our show, essentially. This is how we wrap up a wonderful conversation. So the first one is, to me, fearless freedom is
healthy, holistic menstrual cycles.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's what it is. That's what it is, right?
That means that you are showing up.
Got that. All right. And then if I am fearless, I will.
Oh, I will shine brilliantly from my core essence.
Awesome. And then last but definitely not least, my battle cry is
teach the menstrual cycle.
All right. Hey, that's good. That works. Teach the menstrual cycle it is. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us at the Fearless Freedom Tribe. We really appreciate you. And let me know if there's anything you want me to put in the show notes so that we can share with everybody in the tribe. And then also how we can reach you, or how they can reach you on social media would be a great help in getting you connected with the folks that are listening. Sound good?
Yes, sounds great.
All right, awesome. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.